Yes, thanks, Madam Acting Deputy President. And I rise to speak on the Community Affairs Legislation Committee additional information. And this is important legislation that the committee work has been dealing with, and it's something that I have spent time in Queensland dealing with over the last couple of months as well. Since the election, I've been through a number of Cape York communities. I've been through Hopevale, I've been to Cohen, I've been to Lockhart River, and I've been to Napranum. And the lack of consultation that has gone on in those communities is stark. And the government try to claim that they've consulted these communities. They have done no such thing. So there is a lack of information about the impact that this rollout is going to have in these communities. And the government have been treating these communities, same as they've been treating the Hinkler, the communities of Hervey Bay and Bundaberg, like mushrooms, where they've been keeping them in the dark and not actually giving them accurate information to justify the further rollout of this card. And what we know from travelling to these places and listening to people, which is something the government haven't done, and certainly the sitting government members in these areas certainly have not done, is you actually hear firsthand the experiences from those people who've been impacted by this card. And that's been my experience in the last month, having been to Hervey Bay and Bundaberg, including in Hervey Bay, where I conducted a forum for people around the cashless welfare card and for people to come along and have a chat to me. And the reason why people were so keen to come along and have a chat to me was because their local member refuses to listen and refuses to engage with those people. And indeed, in the other place, in the House this week, Keith Pitt, the member for Hinkler, rose in that place and actually tried to claim that there were no concerns from locals. Well, that's because he's not listening and he doesn't have an open door for those people who are impacted by this as well. What we also know is that the government's spin, as they try to justify the rollout of this card, is absolutely lacking. And what we've seen through the efforts of the government is that they try and compare, they try and claim that this has led to a reduction in those people who are unemployed in parts of this, and they also claim that there's 700 people who are no longer on the cashless welfare, on the cashless debit card in the Hinkler community. But when you actually look at that and break it down and actually ask the government to provide an example of what those people are now doing, the response from the government is it would be an unreasonable diversion of resources to prepare this data. So on one hand, they're trying to claim how great this is and what a success it's been, but when you actually pin them down to provide some evidence about this, they provide no such evidence at all. They try and claim that there's been a reduction in unemployment in the region as well. But when you compare unemployment in Bundaberg to unemployment in Gympie, which is a couple of hours down the road and isn't subject to the cashless welfare card, there's actually been no substantial difference over the last 12 months. So on all the claims that the government have made to try and say that the cashless welfare card has been a success in Hinkler, there's actually no evidence once you actually look at what the government are putting forward to back it up and claim it as a success. The other thing that is important is that the Australian National Audit Office has previously criticised the department's data collection about this and described the approach and monitoring evaluation as inadequate. So even the Audit Office is saying there's a lack of robustness in data collection. So if they really wanted to treat this trial seriously and actually look at the impact it was having in the community, they'd have a much more robust approach to how this was done. But they do not do that. And for Keith Pitt, the member for Hinkler, to actually criticise those people who came along to my forum and discredit them who came along to give their evidence, it is really disappointing that he's treating his constituents with contempt. And I just wanted to briefly talk about Jodie McNally, who came along to my forum in Hervey Bay, and she actually drove from Bundaberg, which is about an hour's trip, because she was so passionate to be able to put her case to an elected official that sadly Mr Pitt won't do. And she talked about her experience of going on the cashless welfare card. And the personal story was covered in the Fraser Coast Chronicle. Miss McNally has chronic pain from arthritis and prolapsed discs. She doesn't gamble or drink alcohol, but has debilitating anxiety, which she says the card has negatively impacted on. Miss McNally has applied to opt out of this trial, but has not heard anything since July. Mr Pitt keeps saying that he has heard anecdotal evidence from people that the card has been a success. but he clearly isn't listening to his local community and is indeed dismissive of people like Ms Jodie McNally. So I'd say to the government, and I'd say to those people government members who are responsible for these communities that are going to be impacted, they need to get out there, they need to listen to those people. They should not roll this out from on high and just say this is what local communities are getting. This is having a negative and devastating impact on those people who have been impacted. Labor has taken the right position where we oppose the national rollout of this, and that is something that we will continue to fight in Queensland, but we will continue to fight across Australia as well.